Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this stream on this Saturday. Have a wonderful weekend, of course, and well, it is 19th of July, 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media and public is paying attention to, and hopefully you will find this episode informative and useful. Of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on, or maybe will watch this stream sometime during the day or maybe tomorrow in a recording. Before I start new segment, dear friends, let me just notice that this media project, this independent media project, exists only as long as it has your support. So, if you like my work, if you want to see potential further development of this project, and I do have some plans about it, then please consider to support my work. You can do it through several means. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty. That will be great support, of course. I share quite often extra content there. This week was different because I get called and I was unable to make extra content this week. Maybe I will today. But otherwise, I have regular extra content on Patreon and Boosty channels. Also, you can support through PayPal platform, or also you can use Boosty, which allows you to also donate, not just become a subscriber, but also to donate to a project. You can use crypto for help, and during the live stream, dear friends, you can use a super chat feature on Rumble. Or become or for support, or become a premium subscriber on Rumble. Unfortunately, my channel on YouTube is not monetized, never gonna be monetized, so there is no such options on YouTube. That's been said, dear friends, I guess this is it for intro. Usually I take a minute or two, by the way, in the beginning of the stream, because so that more people will join. It might be a little frustrating for some of you that are on watching this stream from the beginning, but in that case, my apologies, dear friends. But I do take a couple of minutes in the beginning to just warm up, let's say, and well, let's go through some news now. Let's start our news segment, and first news that I want to report about today is this one from RIA Novosti, that air defense systems on duty intercepted 71 drones that were launched by Kyiv regime with the assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. When it comes to specifics, 24 drones were intercepted over the Rostov region, 16 drones over the Moscow region, including 13 that was directed towards the capital itself. 11 drones were intercepted over the Bryansk region, 10 over the Kaluga region, 3 over Kursk, 2 each over Areola, Tula, and Lipetsk regions, 1 over the Krasnodar region. So quite a vast geography of these long-range strikes from Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky and its NATO allies. Vast majority of drones, as it is usually their case, are intercepted, but unfortunately, time to time, some of the drones are managing to bypass our defense systems and cause casualties and damage. When it comes to activization of Kyiv regime and NATO in terms of strikes on Moscow, probably you noticed it, isn't it? Well, I'm connecting this activization to reports in the Western media initially, and then media worldwide began talk about it, that during the last conversation between Trump and Zelensky, Trump allegedly demanded from Kyiv regime to began strikes on Moscow and St. Petersburg, and maybe it's a coincidence, maybe not. Washington itself or White House itself denied these claims in the media, but we clearly see activization of Kyiv regime in terms of attacking capital of the Russian Federation, Moscow, and also there was an attempt to strike on St. Petersburg 2 days ago. I reported about it, and to repel these attacks, by the way, it's not just air defense systems that are engaged with their aerial targets, but also Russia actively deploys helicopter helicopters for this purpose. And let me show you, for example, a couple of videos about work of Russian attack helicopters. Based on sound in this video, I guess it's a key alligators. Let's watch it again. Because these attack helicopters, PA-52s or Mi-28s, are equipped with air-to-air, not just air-to-surface, but also air-to-air missiles, and they are quite effective to neutralize aerial targets, not just with the missiles, but also with the gun, on-board guns, right? After all, these helicopters, attack helicopters, called helicopter gunships for a reason. And this is another video, by the way. There is a moment when helicopter launched a missile. And let's watch it again. So missile is launched and another drone intercepted. According to reports, this was the Moscow region, by the way, where these two short clips were filmed. So yes, that's daily routine nowadays. And as I said, it's not just the Russian air defense systems, best in the world, clearly best in the world, but also helicopters, army aviation that is engaged in neutralizing aerial targets. One should expect further increase in attempts from Kyiv regime and NATO when it comes to this long-range drone launches towards Moscow and potentially towards St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is more difficult for NATO and the Kyiv regime because drones have to fly quite a long range, isn't it, from Kyiv-controlled territory up to St. Petersburg, although speculations never stopped on the internet, by the way, that whenever there is a drone attacks on Leningrad region or St. Petersburg, these drones are launched from Baltic states or from Finland. Russian Defense Ministry never confirmed this information, so it's only speculations. And theoretically speaking, it is a possibility, of course, but as long as the Defense Ministry of the Russian Federation is not confirming this, such reports, then I would not say that these NATO member states are engaged this directly in attacks on St. Petersburg. Also, dear friends, it's not just the Kyiv regime, obviously, but Russian armed forces conducting on daily basis long-range precise strikes on the military and logistical infrastructure of the Kyiv regime, including on the facilities where these drones are reassembled. Right, drones that usually are produced in the West, by the way, then shipped to Kyiv regime in parts, and then Kyiv regime is usually reassembling it on its controlled territory. So Russian armed forces literally on daily basis conducting attacks, long-range precise attacks on facilities of military-industrial complex that are working in this direction to reassemble these drones. So in some cases, maybe even to build some domestic drones for long-range strikes. Also, obviously, military infrastructure and logistical infrastructure is targeted big time. And we had this report, for example, this morning that military and logistics infrastructure of the Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky was targeted by Russian armed forces with the drones and missiles in Dnipropetrovsk, Pavlograd, Odessa, Shoska, Poltava, Zhytomyr, and several other directions. And right before I launched this stream, there was reports about more explosions in the Dnipropetrovsk region in Pavlograd. So during the day, probably we will receive some more information about this. And on your screen, dear friends, you can see a map of directions of Russian drones, main directions of the Russian drones, excuse me, during the last night's strikes. Also interesting news from TASS news agency that probably will surprise anybody who is the first time on my channel or first time in watching any content on alternative media. Because if person only had information from Western MSM, by the way, Western propaganda, then information that Russian armed forces this week alone liberated 10 settlements, going to become as a big surprise, because vast majority of societies in the West that are under heavy influence of propaganda are quite sure that there is a stalemate. There is nothing, no movements on the front line. They constantly hear this word stalemate, 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 while this is lie, by the way. Russian troops improving their positions literally on daily basis, and every single day, with very rare occasions, with very rare exceptions, we are receiving reports about liberation of number of settlements in different directions. And this week alone, which is not yet ended, isn't it? Today is a Saturday, so today and tomorrow probably more settlements will be liberated, but 10 already was liberated. Let me give you some details on that. So the Russian armed forces liberated 10 settlements in the special military operations zone over the past week. I mean, week is not past yet. It's a Saturday, so today, tomorrow, more settlements will be liberated. Have no doubts about it. But when it comes to these 10 settlements, the North Group, for example, liberated Diktyarne in the Kharkov region. Yug Group, Yug is a South Group, by the way, of the Russian group of forces, liberated Petrovka in the DPR. Center Group liberated Nikolaevka, Mayak, and Popov Yar in the DPR. Vostok, which is East Group, liberated settlement Karl Marx, Voskresenka, Novoakhatska in the DPR, and Malinovka in the Zaporozhye region. And Dnipro Group liberated Kamenskaya in the Zaporozhye region. As I said, dear friends, today, tomorrow, we should expect reports about more settlements being liberated. Clearly, Russian troops improving positions on a daily basis. And I said many times before, it's only a matter of time, when we will see gradual collapse of Kiev regime's defense lines in a domino effect style. Because only so much pressure Kiev regime's forces can withstand. They are very close to breaking point. My personal opinion, and dear friends, because I'm no military expert, let's take my predictions on military subjects with a pinch of salt or mountain of salt, because yet again, I never pretended to be a military expert, isn't it? I'm just sharing my takes, my reading of the big picture. Also interesting news, dear friends, that while Russian troops are improving positions on a daily basis, Washington Post came up with their article according to which US President Donald Trump demanded from Kiev regime offensive operations to begin by Kiev regime's forces. This information, if true, by the way, I mean, nowadays Western MSM is in a place where barely anybody can have 100% guarantees that reports are correct, right? We should take any report from Western MSM with a pinch of salt. But nevertheless, if true, then in that case, Washington Post is saying that Trump demanded the Kiev regime to begin offensive operations because allegedly Trump thinks that with their constant defense, Kiev regime wouldn't be able to achieve any success. And this information, by the way, clearly demonstrates how delusional Trump is, isn't it? How poorly informed and how delusional Trump is. I mean, to demand from Kiev regime offensive, at least sectoral scale offensive operations, I mean, really? With what? With what? I don't know. Ask Trump, by the way. Maybe he knows better military matters, although I have some doubts about that too. And it's not just me, by the way. We have a comment on this claim in the Washington Post from Ukrainian MP. The rather commented on Trump's advice to their Ukrainian armed forces to go on offensive. This is report on RIA Novosti. So Ukrainian Verkhovna Radovich's parliament, by the way, deputy Artyom Dmitriuk, who left the country, called the proposal of US President Donald Trump to send their Ukrainian armed forces on their offensive and explosive idea comparing it to a proposal to jump headfirst from the 9th floor. The Washington Post, citing sources among Ukrainian and European officials, reported earlier on Friday that US President Donald Trump told Vladimir Zelensky in early July, I guess during the phone conversation that they had on 4th of July, I believe, that Ukraine needed to go on offensive because it would not change the course of the conflict by being defensive. Unbelievable, man. And we have a quote from this Ukrainian MP. Most likely, we will hear from the White House in the near future rejection of these claims. The version is too explosive. Their advice, of course, is friendly and powerful, from the category, brother, if you want to win, jump from the 9th floor head first. Maybe you'll get lucky. Dmitry wrote on his Telegram channel, and you get the point, isn't it? Kyiv regime is in no position to begin any large-scale offensive operations. Even on a sectoral level, right? Kyiv regime is in no position to do this. Of course, due to forceful mobilization, Zelensky and his criminal associates may accumulate 10, 20, 30, 40, maybe 50,000 troops as a sort of reserves, and I guess they are doing this. And they most likely are accumulating whatever weapons they might get from the West. But there is very little chances that Kyiv regime will use this potentially last strategical reserves that they have to launch any more or less large-scale offensive operations, even if Donald Trump wants them to do it. Although, in other hand, by the way, who knows? Who knows if Trump will demand Kyiv regime to go on offensive, then in that case, we might actually see yet another suicidal offensive operation from Kyiv regime's forces, maybe on the current line of contact, or maybe Kyiv regime will try to cross the border again and conduct some incursion into one of the Russian regions in Kursk direction, Belgorod, or maybe even Bryansk region, by the way. Theoretically speaking, it is a possibility, but in realistic terms, I don't think so. Kyiv regime is in no position to launch a large-scale offensive operation and have a realistic hope to achieve any success, right? That will be just yet another suicidal operation, and that's about it, right? But nevertheless, Kyiv regime is being emboldened lately, by the way, by not just Donald Trump and his statements and his administration, but also by European regimes, globalist-controlled regimes, UK, France, Germany, Italy, and others. And we have this report, for example, that Macron make yet another bold statements against Russia after conversation with Zelensky. Let's go for some details in this news. So French leader Emmanuel Macron announced on the social network X that the pressure on Moscow is increasing. We have, quote, I just had a conversation with Vladimir Zelensky together with other Western leaders. Maybe this was a group call, sort of. Keir Starmer, German Merz, Chancellor Merz, and maybe Italy's Meloni was also participating. Some others, I don't know. So there was a phone conversation, and Macron is saying that we are increasing pressure on Russia to achieve an unconditional ceasefire. And when they say unconditional ceasefire, they mean unconditional surrender of Russia. I guess they really believe, still, by the way, until now, they really believe that they can force Russia to submission. They can achieve a strategical defeat of Russia. That's how delusional they are, right? Globalists and their puppets in the governments of collective West countries. And therefore, we should not be surprised to hear these crazy statements from the West. Macron stressed that Paris will continue to support the Ukrainian side and welcome the adoption of a new package of anti-Russian sanctions in this regard. Okay, by the way. Okay. I don't know how long it will take before Western so-called elites will realize actually, that they have lost this proxy war against Russia. But I mean, that day is coming, right? That day will come for sure. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that Trump forced Germany to give Ukraine its air defense systems. Interesting, US President Donald Trump insists that European countries, including Germany, supply air defense systems from their arsenal to Ukraine. Bild reported. Bild is a German media outlet, isn't it? As reported by Bild, citing sources in German government, Trump refused to transfer air defense systems from US stockpiles to Ukraine. Instead, Trump demanded that European countries, primarily Germany, send weapons to Kiev from their own arsenal. So Trump basically is demanding Germany to continue its demilitarization. And Berlin is in no position to refuse. It's an occupied country, isn't it? Many people worldwide maybe, don't paying much attention to this topic, but Germany is an occupied country, by the way, and German political class, German ruling class, by the way, is controlled, first of all, by US and by UK, occupiers, right? And both countries have a military presence in Germany. It's an occupied country. That's why I always say that German so-called government is not really representative of the German people or the will of the German people. German government traditionally, since the end of Second World War, in case of West Germany and then United Germany, this so-called government there is representing will of Washington and London. That was the case before. It is the case now, and will be case at least in foreseeable future, because I don't think German public is in position to reclaim their own country. People are waking up for sure, and Alternative for Germany Party and some other political organizations are gaining momentum, but they are nowhere near a real power for now, at least. And there is a quite a possibility that they would not be able to get to a position of decision making anyways, despite the increased public support, right? So government of Germany represents London and Washington, and not surprisingly, they are demilitarizing themselves, demilitarizing Germany, which is a great news for Poland, by the way, which is great news for Poland, because Polish elites, and I guess some experts at least in Germany do understand that once Poland will reclaim some 70% of Western Ukraine, and this is going to happen, by the way, some 70% of Western Ukraine that used to be part of Poland before Second World War, then questions will rise in Germany about territories, German territories that was given to Poland after Second World War as a compensation for losing Eastern territories, right? And me personally, I'm 100% convinced that give it 10, 15 years, and Poland and Germany, maybe with their allies, gonna end up in a military confrontation. And therefore, the militarization of Germany and weakening of Germany is definitely good news for Poland and its main allies, which is London and Washington, by the way. We should keep that in mind too, right? Let's continue with some more news. And press spokesman of the Russian president commented on extremely aggressive and irresponsible statements from US general that was threatening to obliterate Kaliningrad region of the Russian Federation. Let me give you some quotes from Peskov. So Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov called the statements by NATO Ground Forces Commander US General Christopher Donahue about the Kaliningrad region hostile. So that's the comment, by the way. Press spokesman of the Russian president said that, well, this is a hostile statement from Donahue. I mean, really? And I just remind you, dear friends, that according to Donahue, NATO has already planned to quickly suppress the defensive potential of the Russian forces in Kaliningrad region. According to him, the plans for a line of deterrence on the eastern flank involves strengthening ground capabilities and improving military-industrial cooperation with their alliance. And he said, by the way, that they are ready to obliterate, to delete from face of the earth, basically, Kaliningrad region, which was direct threat to to direct threat that they will kill hundreds of thousands of Russian citizens there. That's what annihilation or means, right? That's what statement that they're gonna, delete from face of the earth that region means. These freaking fascists, man. But we have a comment from Peskov. This is yet another statement in a series of such hostile, aggressive statements that we now often hear from the representatives of the Defense Department of the European countries and also US, by the way. This Donahue is not European, he is a US general, right? All this forces Russia to take the necessary measures to ensure its own security, he added. And day before, by the way, the new Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, American General Alexis Grinkevich, said that the alliance war with Russia and China could begin in 2027. I mean, these psychos are not joking, by the way. They really are preparing for a war with Russia and China that they will provoke, direct war. And maybe in 2027. Maybe in 2027, I don't know. And if there was really, by the way, if there was any time to wake up for Western societies, that time was yesterday, day before yesterday. But better they should wake up today at least, or tomorrow if it's not too late, right? Because once missiles start flying, by the way, then, well, then game is over, right? And clearly, Western so-called elites are so delusional, and that they really believe that they can actually defeat Russia, they can actually defeat China, they can, they're delusional that they can defeat entire world, by the way, and therefore they're not gonna stop these escalatory processes, right? They will escalate and escalate and escalate until they will finally provoke direct clashes with the potential to annihilate all of humanity, by the way. Is this a serious topic? It is a serious topic. Meanwhile, dear friends, we have this report from Kommersant newspaper that British Times come up with a report that Trump, Putin, and Xi Jinping, leaders of US, Russia, and China, may meet in September in China, which is quite something to report. I don't think this is going to happen, but nevertheless, let me give you details. According to publication, the meeting may coincide with the celebration of their 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Ceremonial military parade is planned for September 3rd on Tiananmen Square in Beijing, where the Chinese and Russian leaders are expected to be present. And yes, in this regard, yes, the Russian president definitely is going to be in Beijing. Statements about it was made quite a number of times before, but I'm not sure US president gonna be there. I don't think so, and therefore, I don't think it is even technically possible to arrange this trilateral meeting between our three leaders. And even if not that, okay, Russian president and Chinese leader, they have a lot to talk about, right? Russia and China are strategical partners, leading members of the many international organizations, and they have a lot to talk about, right? But if Trump joins them, then can you imagine how awkward that's gonna be? I mean, what Putin and Xi Jinping gonna talk to Trump? I mean, what they gonna discuss? Weather patterns on Mercury, or what? Is there any point to talk to Trump about anything really? No. So therefore, I don't think this meeting will take place. It just makes no sense whatsoever. And press spokesman of the Russian president was asked about it, and let me give you a response on that. Kremlin is unaware of any plans for Russian President Vladimir Putin, his US counterpart Donald Trump, and Chinese leader Xi Jinping to meet in China on the sidelines of the festives marking 80th anniversary of the victory in the war of resistance against the Japanese aggression. Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, "We do not know anything about such a possibility," Peskov said, commenting to TASS on reports in the Times. And I believe, by the way, that Peskov has no idea what Times is talking about, because yet again, such a meeting makes no sense. I mean, Xi Jinping and Putin can talk about many things, right? In bilateral relationships and about future of the organizations that both countries are members, BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and others. Two leaders can discuss developments in this world, in different parts of this world. But if Trump would join them, then I don't think they'd be able to talk seriously, discuss anything at all, because you cannot talk to Trump, by the way. It's a waste of time, right? It's just a waste of time. And I don't think Russian president and Xi Jinping should waste time, right? Maybe Trump wants to join them or something like that, but who the hell is Trump, man? This Epstein client and Epstein's wingman, according to Epstein's girlfriend, by the way, former girlfriend. Trump was Epstein's wingman, I mean, best body, sort of, right? And yes, he's the president of US, and even though he's like a absolutely despicable individual, leaders of other countries have no option, basically, to talk to him when there is some events or something that or the meeting between the delegations of two countries. But otherwise, by the way, if not this political protocol, otherwise I'm quite sure neither Russian leader, neither Chinese leader, neither India's leader, by the way, or any other leader, by the way, in a free world, which is a world outside of the collective West, which definitely cannot be called free, by the way. I don't think any leader outside of the collective West would want to shake hand with Trump or talk to him about anything, man. This dirty element, dirty creature that Trump is, should be ignored, isolated, and put in jail for life, man, for all the crimes that he committed. Nevertheless, let's continue. And Kommersant newspaper is reporting that award-winning journalist Seymour Hersh claims that Ukraine will have a new president in the coming several months, by the way. Quite interesting report here. So journalist Seymour Hersh, citing sources in Washington, reported that Ukraine's ambassador to the UK and the former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian army, Valery Zaluzhny, could become the next president of Ukraine. According to Seymour Hersh, he could replace Vladimir Zelensky on the post in a few months. As Seymour Hersh added in a publication on a Substack platform, Vladimir Zelensky will leave his post if US President Donald Trump makes such a decision. One of the journalists' interlocutors also said that Zelensky could be removed from the office by force. So this is interesting. Seymour Hersh was, so many times, by the way, correct in his reports, right? He's a award-winning, well-respected journalist from US, and I think he has good enough sources. He always does, by the way, right? Good enough sources to make such a claim, and me personally, not surprised to hear any of it. Majority of our community probably are also not surprised how many times I did spoke about Zaluzhny possibility or scenario that Zaluzhny would replace Zelensky. I spoke about even yesterday. I mentioned this, isn't it? So I talk about it on a regular basis. So none of us will be surprised if this will happen. But nevertheless, Seymour Hersh has sources. My judgment is based on open sources, and Seymour Hersh has sources in U.S. intelligence community, in U.S. Political elites, right? So he knows more, objectively speaking, right? And so, yes, maybe, by the way, soon we will see coup d'etat in Ukraine, and Zaluzhny most likely will replace Zelensky, and then they will conduct some sort of quasi-elections, and Zaluzhny will legitimize his presidency like that. I see this such possibility quite realistic, as a quite realistic scenario. Especially because earlier we had reports, isn't it, that the White House was demanding, allegedly, from Zelensky not to prolong martial law and the forceful mobilization, but Zelensky did not listen. And I believe yesterday or day before that I reported about it on my Telegram and Twitter X page, state rather in Kiev controlled territory actually prolonged the martial law and the forceful mobilization, right? Zelensky did not sign up this prolongation yet. I did not see reports on that, but he will, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. But point is that he did not listen to these alleged recommendations from the White House, from the Washington, not to prolong martial law and to begin preparations for elections. And maybe Washington is really upset, sick and tired with Zelensky, and maybe London did persuade Washington to support London's candidacy on the position of next leader of Kiev regime, which is Zaluzhny. And Zaluzhny, by the way, I was reporting for how long now that Zaluzhny had and still has close ties with British intelligence, British militaries, right? He and his camp had a confrontation, bloody confrontation with Zelensky and his inner circle. People were killed, by the way, while Zaluzhny was in Ukraine. And I think it was London's decision to force Kiev to appoint Zaluzhny as ambassador into UK, because this way British secret services will have a easier time to secure Zaluzhny. But after this report, and I'm quite sure Zelensky and his criminal associates are paying close attention to reports from Seymour Hersh, let's say. After this report, who knows, by the way, maybe SBU will try to take out Zaluzhny in London, by the way, and they will try to blame that on Russia. That's a possibility. So British MI6, MI5, and whatever other terrorist organizations are engaged in protection of Zaluzhny, they will probably ramp up their security measures. We will find out. But yes, I think Hersh is correct, and soon we will see regime change in Kiev-controlled territory. And dear friends, before I continue, let me once again notice more people have joined the stream. So let me once again notice that this independent media project only exists as long as I have your support, community support. And so if you like my work, if you like my videos, if you want to see possible further developments of this project, please consider to support. You can do it by subscribing to my Patreon page or page on Boosty, where I have extra content on regular basis as my thank for your support. And also you can support through PayPal platform, Boosty platform, crypto, and during the live streams, dear friends, you can use a super chat feature on Rumble or become a premium subscriber. There is such options there, because my channel on Rumble is monetized and will never be monetized on YouTube. So that's been said, dear friends. Of course, many thanks to everybody who already supported and continues to support. And let me also notice, dear friends, I should say about it in the beginning of the stream, but I forget. Let me also notice that tomorrow on Sunday, I will have yet another fundraising stream. We're gonna have a big community chat tomorrow, as it is a tradition now on Sundays. right? And well, hopefully that fundraising stream will be a success. Also, two previous streams were success, so I'm a little bit optimistic that I will get community support, and I'll be able to continue this work. Maybe even hope for a further development of this project. There is so much to do, by the way, but it's all about capabilities, what you can actually do, and quite often it depends on financial stuff. For example, I had to invest. Some people, after I had the interview with Alex Christoforou a couple of days ago, some members commented under the video that I should buy new microphones because sound quality was not that great, and I did, by the way. So I had to invest in microphones, and hopefully sound will improve significantly. I did not yet tested it, or I did not yet make video with these new mics, but maybe today I will make some extra for Patreon and Boosty, and I will test that new equipment. Anyways, this is it for the short pause. Now let me continue with some other news. And well, RT is reporting that US takes credit for Israel-Syria ceasefire. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Syria's interim leader Ahmad al-Sharaa have allegedly agreed to US-supported ceasefire proposal after Israel carried out multiple airstrikes against the defense ministry in Damascus, and ostensibly in defense of the Druze minority in the southern Syria, where clashes, by the way, continues between Damascus forces and the Druze forces. Israel allegedly stopped bombing Damascus forces that are attacking Druze armed formations. Allegedly, Israel even agree that Damascus security forces, so-called security forces, by the way, will enter southern Syria, where Druze community lives. But yet again, at this point, it is difficult to verify any news that coming from that part of the world, and it is difficult to believe anything that comes out from either Israel or the US on that matter. US Special Envoy Tom Barak, who also serves as the US ambassador to Turkey, credited American diplomacy under the President Donald Trump and the Secretary of the State Marco Rubio for their breakthrough agreement in the statement posted on X on Friday. So even though there is no trust in these statements that Israel and Damascus reached a ceasefire agreement and they will honor this agreement, U.S. Special Envoy is crediting U.S. President and Marco Rubio anyways for this alleged agreement. It's a fake show, by the way. I mean, U.S. Political class and political class of U.S. allies, it's a fake show. It's total fake show, man. Right? Also, there was reports, by the way, that Turkey once again demanded from U.S. to influence the situation and to de-escalate, force Israel to de-escalate in Syria. Let's see how all things work out. But unfortunately, due to clashes in Al-Suwaida province, hundreds of people have already been killed. Hundreds of innocent people already been killed. There is executions, mass executions, and that kind of horrible, tragic stuff, tragic developments that is taking place there. RT is also reporting that Tulsi Gabbard releases overwhelming evidence of Obama coup plot against Trump. Well, interesting. Former President Barack Obama's administration deliberately manipulated intelligence to frame Russia for interfering in a 2016 presidential elections, according to newly declassified documents released on Friday by America's Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard unveiled more than 100 pages of emails, memos, and internal communications, which she described as overwhelming evidence of a coordinating effort by senior Obama-era officials to politicize intelligence and launch their multi-year Trump-Russia collision investigation. She dubbed it a treasonous conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people. Well, maybe after these revelations from the Tulsi Gabbard, some new investigations will take place, and some elements that were engaged in this Russia hoax will end up before court, maybe, or maybe not. We don't know, by the way. But what is sad is that Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, this personality that was well respected worldwide, isn't it? Just a couple of years ago, she was well respected worldwide, and now, unfortunately, she no longer has this reputation, by the way, reputation of the true person or real person, especially after her stands in regards to Israeli war crimes and crimes against humanity, and then after her antiques when it comes to this whole Epstein story, right? When it comes to Iran, by the way, Iran topic, she has no connection with Epstein. I messed up there. She has no connection with Epstein. I guess maybe she has, but when it comes to Iran story, you remember, isn't it, that earlier she herself reported that Iran is not working on a nuclear program, military nuclear program, right? And when Trump bombed Iran and began justifying this crime that Trump committed, Tulsi Gabbard changed her opinion and began justifying Trump's criminal actions. So therefore, I have no trust in Tulsi Gabbard, by the way. And if okay, I'm not U.S. citizen, so no one cares do I trust her or no, but I think many U.S. citizens also no longer see her as to be true person, and someone that actually has principles and values, right? And this is sad, by the way, because a couple of years ago, I was thinking that she's really good person, by the way. And I was a bit surprised how she even were allowed to become a part of political system. But, well, now we know. She did not really has no principles and values, man. She was just acting. She's a good actor, I guess. RT is also reporting that U.S. to stop criticizing foreign elections. Okay, U.S. top diplomat Marco Rubio has instructed the U.S. State Department to limit its long-standing practice of assessing the fairness of elections in foreign countries, according to a memo seen by the Wall Street Journal. The previous administration of U.S. President Joe Biden, which had declared what it called strengthening democratic institutions globally among its core foreign policy goals, regularly condemned the results of the votes in other nations. Shortly before leaving office in January, then U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken claimed that the presidential elections in Belarus could not be free or fair because of their repressive environment there. He also expressed concern over the alleged democratic backsliding in another former Soviet republic, Georgia. I mean, U.S. tried big time, by the way, under Biden's administration to orchestrate a regime change in Georgia. They failed, and Biden's administration was very critical of Georgian leadership. As currently globalist controlled regimes in Europe are critical. They still continue to push for regime change. I don't know level of US involvement right now, but probably CIA is also continues to operate in this regard, because it is US funds and different institutions that are in control of majority of the so-called opposition figures in Georgia, and NGOs and Western finance so-called media. So I mean, yes, interesting. On one hand, interesting statement from or information from Wall Street Journal, if true, once again. But on the other hand, I don't believe this. By the way, I don't believe that U.S. gonna stay away from other countries and no longer try to manipulate internal policies of their other countries' internal affairs. I just don't believe this is true. Neither Marco Rubio, neither U.S. President Donald Trump, neither any other person, by the way, in current U.S. administration deserves any respect whatsoever. So therefore, why should anybody believe anything that either comes out from these individuals or are related to these individuals? Or are related to the policies, let's say, to these individuals. I mean, they cannot be trusted, right? TASS news agency is also reporting that Trump, by the way, again spoke about BRICS and stated that this organization is fading out faster in wake of his 10% tariff threat. And I wonder, does he really believe this nonsense that he's talking about? I mean, quite often Trump is talking about some total BS, right? Total crap, by the way. And only question I have, does he really believes what he is saying in that nonsense? I don't know, man. So US President Donald Trump stated that BRICS has been fading out faster since he threatened to impose 10% tariffs on the grouping. We have a quote from Trump, by the way, and you have this little group called BRICS. It's fading out fast, the US leader said, as he signed a bill to regulate cryptocurrency at the ceremony in the White House on Friday. BRICS wanted to try and take over the dollar, the dominance of the dollar, to challenge dominance of the dollar and the standard of the dollar. And I said anybody that in the BRICS BRICS consortium of nations, we are going to tariff you 10%. And they had their meeting the following day and almost nobody showed up. He continued without specifying exactly which meeting he was referring to. And really, by the way, I mean, I'm going to show you a video of his statement, short clip now, but what is he talking about? Is he himself understands or believes in this crap? This guy is lying too much, by the way. I mean, Trump is just lying too freaking much, right? And for what? Why? What is wrong with him, though? Let me show you, dear friends, some short clip of his statements. Let's listen to it.
It's fading out fast, but BRICS is, they wanted to try and take over the dollar, the dominance of the dollar and the standard of the dollar. And I said, anybody that's in the BRICS consortium of nations, we're going to tariff you 10%. And they had a meeting the following day and almost nobody showed up. They said, leave me alone. They didn't want to be tariffed, did they, Howard? Huh? So it's amazing. No, we're not going to let the dollar slide. If we have a smart president, you're never going to let the dollar slide. If you have a dummy, that could happen. Like the last one, he would. If you ever asked him about the dollar sliding, he would have no idea. But we can't let that ever happen again.
I mean, dear friends, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? This guy is a president of US, right? Maybe real decision makers are in the shadow and okay, they put certain individuals in up front of camera to act like presidents, head of State Department, other institutions. But what the hell? I mean, at least sometimes these people, these puppets, have to talk some sensical stuff, or it's not required at all. What Trump is talking about? Which BRICS summit or BRICS meeting failed to attract member states or member delegations. It never happened, right? And when he's saying that BRICS members are afraid now, it's 10% tariffs. Wow, man. And unfortunately, some people in US and maybe worldwide probably really are believing in this crap. That yes, BRICS member states are afraid of some US is 10% tariffs or something. Come on, man. This is just too bad, isn't it? This is really too bad, man. Trump has, it's none of my business, by the way, but I think it will be best for US ordinary citizens, by the way. So therefore, I find all of us ordinary people to be natural allies, because we are ordinary people and should never take each other as enemies. So I think in best interest of American ordinary people that done nothing bad to me or to my people, right? So that why should I be negative towards them? Therefore, so I want ordinary people all over the world to be okay, right? To do good, and it is in the best interest of U.S. citizens to remove Trump and to allow J.D. Vance to lead the country, because this is crazy, man. This is too embarrassing, right? What Trump and his administration has become in just the 6 freaking months since they took office is a total embarrassment, by the way. Who would thought that Trump's administration would be even more embarrassing than Biden's administration, man? I don't know. Sooner Trump will leave White House and free their place for J.D. Vance, the better, I think. And this is going to happen, by the way. This is definitely going to happen. Pro-America forces and Republican Party, if they have any influence on the situation, they should use this influence now and recommend Trump to, just retire, man. And this is too bad. This is just too bad, man. Everybody's laughing, right? When Trump opens mouth, rest of the world is laughing. I mean, is it normal? No. And Trump's policies, by the way, hurting American people, right? Ordinary people. All these tariff wars and the trade wars and spendings on forever wars. Does it benefits anyway American people? No. And a few more news, dear friends. A few more news. Well, Grushko, Russian diplomat, by the way, also commented on threats from the West in regards to Russia, in regards to BRICS. And let me give you some details. Very logical statements, by the way, here. The formation of the multipolar world will only accelerate due to West's threats of secondary sanctions against Russia and Russia's partners. Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko told the TASS news agency, and he's absolutely correct, isn't it? He's absolutely correct. This insane behavior of the collective West countries, leadership of the collective West countries, when they are threatening literally the rest of the world on daily basis and are trying to bully rest of the world into submission, what this policy will do is that BRICS member states and dozens and dozens of countries that are queuing in to join the BRICS, by the way, they will further increase cooperation. Because on their own, by the way, very few countries in this world will be able to withstand the pressure from the West on their own. But together, chances, gonna increase tremendously, right? Chances to defend themselves, their economical, financial interests, right? Political interests. So Grushko is absolutely correct. This tremendously hostile behavior of the Western elites towards the rest of the world will only force countries worldwide to get closer, to accelerate basically these processes of integration in different organizations that exist, including BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and others. This is absolutely logical, right? What West gonna get is exactly the opposite of their dreams. And well, meanwhile, Western leaders, let me say, Western leaders continue to do what they do or what they know best, which is introduction of more and more sanctions against Russia, which is the most sanctioned country in world history, by the way, right? Already. So EU Council approved new package of anti-Russian sanctions. This is 18th package of sanctions, by the way, right? And the sanctions are in force already. 14 people, personalities were sanctioned, 41 companies. And also companies, by the way, from not just Russia, but from other countries too. And China already made a statement that Beijing is not happy with this behavior of Brussels, and most likely China will retaliate with the sanctions against European companies and maybe other countries, India, Brazil, others will do the same. Also, what European bureaucrats are trying to do is to impose new price ceiling on Russian oil on a level of $47.6 now for a barrel. From earlier this price ceiling was $60, right? And well, $60 never worked. And what gives these European bureaucrats confidence that $47.6, I mean $47 will work? I don't know, dear friends. No one understands, probably. No one understands, but nevertheless, this is one of the directions that EU bureaucrats went. They could demand Russia to sell its oil for completely free, and maybe we will get there, rather. Maybe not in 19th sanctions package, but in 21st, 23rd, or 25th sanctions package, Brussels might actually demand from Russia to sell oil and gas for free. There is a trajectory there, isn't it? Freaking idiots, man. I mean, it's difficult to comment on these morons, seriously, right? UK also follows, by the way, Brussels, and UK introduces similar sanctions on Russia as EU does. Okay, I mean, if until now there was a 30 plus thousand sanctions, now we will get close to 40,000 sanctions. Okay, we can deal with that, right? They are destroying their own economies, by the way, and even Western media outlets, Western propaganda outlets are acknowledging this, that EU and collective West or the globalists failed to achieve much with this anti-Russian hysteria and anti-Russian sanctions. Even with the new sanctions, the EU has no leverage over Russia. Le Parisien media outlet, for example, is writing, the 18th package of sanctions is unlikely to have a strong impact on Russia, since the Europeans no longer have any special leverage over it, and their promised collapse of Russian economy never happened. This opinion was expressed by David Terty, a professor at the Catholic Institute of Higher Studies, in a commentary to the newspaper Le Parisien. And yes, I mean, it's just a basic logics, right? It's just logic. You don't have to be genius, by the way, to realize that if 30,000 sanctions didn't work, then, well, 31,000 sanctions would not work either, 32,000 sanctions would not work either, and 35,000 sanctions would not work either. As Einstein said, it was Einstein, isn't it, that, I mean, it's a stupid, I'm interpreting now his statement, but it's a stupid to do same stuff over and over again and to expect a different outcome. It's just too freaking stupid. But tell this to European unelected bureaucrats, by the way. I mean, probably they wouldn't understand because they are just too primitives, right? They are just too extremely degenerated elements, right? With IQ maybe 10 or 15 or 20, I don't know. RT is also reporting that Putin's aid gives a verdict on the new EU sanctions. So EU sanctions targeting Russia are far more damaging to the bloc's member states than they are to Moscow. Presidential investment envoy Kirill Dmitriev said on Telegram on Friday. Brussels announced the adoption of 18th package of sanctions against Russia earlier in a day targeting the country's hydrocarbon exports and banking sector. One of their financial institutions sanctioned was Russian Direct Investment Fund, RDIF, of which Dmitriev is the CEO. According to the presidential envoy, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen pushed for the sanctions against their fund because the RDIF facilitates the settlement of the Ukrainian conflict, promotes dialogue between Russia and the United States, and invests in the growth of Russian economy. The EU elite is afraid of peace and continues to remain captive to a hostile narratives, destroying the economy of their entire EU with its own hands, Dmitriev said, and he is absolutely correct, by the way. He is absolutely correct, and I think more and more people from EU member states are waking up to this reality, that these unelected bureaucrats of Brussels and globalist controlled regimes in Europe in general are destroying livelihoods of their own citizens, economies of their countries, absolutely intentionally, right? They know they're going to harm their own countries, their own citizens, but they are so blind with this Russia hate, by the way. They are so blind with this Russia hate that they cannot help themselves. They cannot stop. They just simply cannot stop. It is what it is, man. Sooner the public in the West wakes up, in Europe in this particular case, better, because maybe they will use their influence to change their trajectory that Europe is heading. Otherwise, as I said a million times before, by the way, give it 20, 30 years and Europe, as we know it, gonna become either loosely relevant or maybe even completely irrelevant part of Eurasian continent. That's it, right? And currently, Europe is clearly heading exactly toward that direction. And this is it when it comes to news segment of this update, dear friends. I hope you did find it informative and useful. Before we start community chat, dear friends, let me share with you this information. There was a super chat. There was a super chat, by the way, on Rumble, and I want to show you this super chat. I'm working alone, dear friends, right? And therefore, I have to do all the stuff, and it does take time. So let me show you this, by the way. Super chat from Bob Jor. Babior. Either Babior, by the way, or Bob Jor. Babior, I guess. Thank you very much for your donation. And question is, do you think Russia is too soft on countries supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles? Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Babior. I think Russia is too soft on the countries that supply weapons to Kiev regime, formally to Kiev regime, by the way. We all understand that these long-range weapon systems, British Storm Shadow missiles, French Scalp PG missiles, US either HIMARS that has about 100-kilometer range, HIMARS missiles, or the ATACMS that has 300-kilometer range. All these weapon systems are being used, prepared and used by US, British, French, with involvement of US, British, French military personnel, and same will be in case of Germany, if and when at this point German Taurus missiles will be deployed too, right? I think yes, Russian take on or Russian response to this hostility from the NATO member states is too soft. Personal opinion, by the way, but same time, one should keep in mind that maybe maybe we are alive, by the way, all of us, all of humanity may be still alive, maybe exactly because of this restraint that Russian leadership is demonstrating. I mean, possibly, right? Because who knows, by the way, these Western so-called elites are clearly psychos, isn't it? They are psychopaths. And they might go ahead and actually provoke full-scale nuclear war, right? Which will mean end of everything, end of humanity. So therefore, even though on one hand, I think this restraint is not working. Only further encourages West to escalate, because they see this restraint of Russian leadership as a weakness. So on one hand, yes, I think we are, because of this restraint, West is getting more and more emboldened, because they think they take it as a weakness, and they are escalating constantly. And now there are talks already about JASSM missiles and Taurus missiles, and potentially even Tomahawk missiles. By the way, Germany did ask Typhoon launchers, isn't it? US. And the Typhoon launchers can launch those Tomahawk missiles up to 2,000 kilometers away, right? So therefore, did restraint work to stop collective West from further escalation? No, it did not, right? But on the other hand, if Russia would, let's say, target British military bases, military facilities, French military facilities, US military facilities, as a response, by the way, would we face then full-scale war and full-scale nuclear exchange between NATO and Russia? And if yes, then maybe this restraint actually something that we all need, by the way. I mean, humanity. Someone has to be adult in the room, isn't it? Someone has to be adult in the room, by the way, because on one hand, yes, it is easy to say, I mean, let's smash them, let's do this and that. But on the other hand, if you have information that if you retaliate, let's say, if Russia obliterates a British military base in Cyprus, for example, if UK in that case would launch atomic bombs, nuclear weapons against Russia, that would mean that, well, we are in a full-scale nuclear exchange, right? Because Russia would retaliate with nukes also, isn't it? So maybe Russia is exercising this restraint to avoid full-scale nuclear war, by the way. Maybe that's the reasoning behind Putin's position. I just don't know. But yes, it does seem like Russia is, from outside, because our knowledge is based on information from open sources, isn't it? We don't know all their information that decision-making process is based in the Kremlin. But from outside, yes, it does look like Russia is reacting too soft. Maybe thanks to this restraint, we are all still alive. But on the other hand, if you did not take in account bigger picture, then yes, one may say that Russia is responding softly. I said many times before, isn't it, dear friends, that at some point Russian leadership may actually find itself in a position, due to constant escalation from the West, that we will see no other option but to, or Russian leadership will see no other option but to stop exercising this restraint and to hit back hard on enemies of Russia, on the countries that are, on military facilities of the countries that are engaged in these long-range strikes on Russia. And I'm afraid we are we are getting close and close to that point. But from outside, I mean, on surface level, yes, it looks like Russian response is soft, and I think whole world thinks like that. But if you dive in a bit more, then you will begin working with, you will begin seeing that, well, this issue is much more complex than just like simple launch of missile towards this or that direction, right? We don't want full-scale war to happen, isn't it, dear friends? We just don't want that. And after all, we should keep in mind that Russia is winning anyways, right? Russia is winning anyways. On the battlefield, by the way. I just reported in the beginning of this live stream, isn't it, that this week alone, 10 more settlements liberated. So progress is clear, isn't it? So Russia is winning anyways. So we should keep that in mind also. And if it's not absolutely necessary, then probably Moscow will continue to operate with current policies. But yet again, I have no idea how thought process works in the Kremlin. By the way, I never been in the Kremlin. I have no idea what those people think. By the way, but on the surface level, it's looks like, well, Russian response is too soft. But maybe thanks to this soft response, we still alive. I'm scrolling now, dear friends, on okay. I'm scrolling now on in chat. If I see a question, I will react on it. As always, dear friends, capital Q or capital letters will make it easier to spot the question. I see question from Don Zugar. Donald Trump is a good example of a Shabbos Goy. I don't know what that is, dear friends. Do you use this phrase in Russia, and do you have any examples of this type of person amongst the Ruskis? What this means, Anne? I don't know what this means. Don Zugar. Sorry, but I just don't know what this phrase means, so I cannot react on it. I mean, Shabbat at a Saturday, right? Was there a Shabbat word? Shabbos. What is Shabbos? Okay, I don't know. Shabbat is in Georgian, by the way, is Saturday, and in Hebrew is a Saturday too, I believe, right? Shabbat. No, так in Georgian тоже Shabbat. No. Okay, let's continue with the questions. Spider OK is asking, how are you and your family? Best regards, Mo. Best regards, Mo Chara. We are okay. We are doing good. Thank you very much. We get cold somehow. I got cold this summertime, and we caught some virus. By the way, nowadays there's so many freaking viruses, isn't it? That you might get cold even summertime, but things happened. But thank you very much for attention. We are doing okay. Adapting to new life, new speed of the life in Moscow. We moved to Moscow last year, isn't it? Last summer, from Moscow region, and I guess we are still in the process of adaptation, but we are doing quite okay. Sorry if I miss your question, dear friends. I see a question from Nidish Kumar. Levan, we should stop honoring their patent rights and mass produce automobiles, food products, and medicine, and sell it to rest of the world to hit their export markets. I mean, we can do much stuff, Nidish. I mean, BRICS member states, right? We can do quite a lot to protect our economies, to protect the world economy, actually, right? And yet again, all this tough talk from Washington in regards to this trade war, tariff war, and all that stuff, this will hurt U.S. big time. I mean, very big time. And therefore, I don't know. Hopefully, some adequate people in among America First forces will realize that Trump is a total disaster, right? He has to be removed, by the way, from office. There is a legal means for that, right? He is not fit, by the way. Trump is clearly not fit to be U.S. president. Also, potentially, he is involved in some crimes that never ever can be forgotten or forgiven. Investigation should take place and say the word about it. So there is many reasons why should Trump be removed, and J.D. Vance should take office. And one might hope then that J.D. Vance's administration will be a bit more adequate, because current administration is wild, and really wild, by the way. Even U.S. citizens, Nidish, don't understand what the hell is going on. They live there, they supported the guy, and now they are shocked to see this craziness. Many U.S. citizens. So we can protect our economies for sure, and we can deal with this situation. Trump clearly has no idea what he's talking about when he's mentioning BRICS. I mean, he just has no freaking idea what BRICS is. He said yesterday, I was watching some short clips, by the way. He said 6 countries are in group. First of all, in group are more countries now, and another few dozen of countries are queuing in, literally. Queuing in. 30 plus countries are in a queue to join the BRICS, by the way, right? And Trump said this is a small group of 6 countries. Wow, man, this is embarrassing, isn't it? U.S. president should know better. Should know better, for God's sake. Initially, yes, Brazil, South Africa, Russia, China, India were founders, right? Initially. But now BRICS is a much bigger, of course. Well, unfortunately, this webcam, by the way, is clearly not working, isn't it? I guess I have to invest in a new webcam, because this is clearly not a good one. And so, yes, I mean, what can I say in Yiddish? Trump has no idea what he's talking about, and even first 5 members of the BRICS that founded the organization, if you take these 5 countries, how on earth you can say this is a small group or something, or it's after all, it's China and India, by the way. These 2 countries almost account for half of the humanity. But maybe Trump don't know nothing about it. I don't know, man. I don't know. And currently, by the way, BRICS represents 40% of world's GDP, right? 40% of world's GDP. And to say that this, and there are G7 countries, by the way, including US, are representing some 30% of world GDP. And Trump is talking about BRICS to be like small organization or something. You cannot comment on that seriously, man. It's Andy Bray is asking, call me untrusting. can the Russian assets be independently be checked? I think the EU is slowly stealing them. Indeed, there is such a reports even on an expert levels that yes, EU is stealing the money. And some time ago, one of their officials in EU even stated that when time comes to return these stored frozen assets to Russia, burden will again lay on European taxpayers because they will have to pay, and that means, well, some parts of the stolen assets have these frozen assets have already been stolen, right? So I think you are correct. Your prediction is correct, and there are certain volume of frozen Russian assets have already been stolen. Not just the profits, but main part too. I think so. And Euroclear, by the way, that's why Euroclear is this critical of the Brussels and Brussels policies, right? Because Euroclear is risking to get smashed, basically, because reputation in that business, in that field, by the way, reputation means everything. And Euroclear is losing this reputation. Who's gonna trust them if they are unable to protect investments that they are managing? Right? So yes, I think they already stolen significant volume of their assets. Luan, I think they violate WTO norms in those secondary sanctions. India, China will drag them in World Trade Organization. I mean, of course, they will violate. The US constantly violates the norms of the WTO. And India leadership, I believe, already stressed, already stated on this matter that, they would not let this slide, right? China will do the same. Both countries actively working on in WTO, World Trade Organization, to deal with this situation. But But unfortunately, Washington just don't cares, man. That's the deal here. That Washington simply don't cares. They know they are violating agreements that they are signing up for, but they don't care. Washington, by the way, is a member of Non-Proliferation Treaty, right? And obligated to protect, literally obligated to protect nuclear programs of other member states, right? And what Washington did in regards to Iran, who is also a member of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, Washington bombed the nuclear facilities of Iran. So, I mean, they just don't care. They don't care. That's the reality, What? Okay. There was a super chat, by the way. Let me also show you, dear friends, this super chat. Super chat again from Babur. Thank you very much, Babur, for your donation. Babur, really Bob Jor. How should I say? Bob. I will say Bob. Thank you, Bob, for your support. When German missiles hit Moscow, then will we say Russia is too soft? As I said, Bob, Moscow is. I think Moscow is very close. Russian leadership is very close to the point when they no longer will be able to exercise restraint, no matter how much they want to avoid their next level of escalation. And their point that you are making, that there is a risk that soon, relatively short time, German missiles will begin hitting Moscow. I think at that point, gloves will come off from Russia. Let's hope it will not come to it. Let's hope somehow globalist collective West will realize that they went too far and they will begin de-escalating. But I think we are getting very close to the point when Moscow will have no option but to take some very stiff actions, and this last drop in patience of the Russian leadership might be potential long-range missile strikes on Moscow and other Russian cities, by the way, with their German Taurus long-range missiles, US JASSM missiles that allegedly also were in a conversation. So yes, I mean, after that, if that will happen, by the way, then no one will talk about Russia's softness no more, because Moscow will retaliate and retaliate big time. I mean, that's what I think, dear friends. You know, Russian leadership clearly demonstrated extreme level of responsibility for whole of humanity, by the way, right? Clearly, there are only, if we take in account leaders of the collective West countries and the Russian leadership, there is a Russian leader that is an adult in the room, right? Rest, by the way, Trump, Stammer, Macron, Merz, Meloni. I mean, those are, you know. But yet again, mark my word, dear friends, if globalists and globalist controlled regimes, if collective West will go ahead with these long-range strikes on Russian capital, on other Russian cities, with long-range strikes like 500 kilometers and beyond, missile strikes, then I think that will be last drop for Moscow, and we will see retaliation. Very serious retaliation from Russian side. After which, by the way, I guess globalists will realize that they have to back down if they want to survive. And only then we will probably begin seeing through the escalation. And we are getting close to that point, you know. But yet again, as I was saying since forever now, until real de-escalation, we will face unprecedented level of escalation between NATO and Russia, with their potential direct strikes. And we are close to it, unfortunately. Once again, thank you very much, Bob, for your super chat, for your donation and support, for your question. Aziz is commenting, Levan, what's your opinion of Nabiullina, head of Russian Central Bank? Personally, I don't trust her. She is too close to West, in my opinion. Well, one may say that all the leaders of the central banks are part of some separate group, by the way, right? The central banks are very specific institutions, right? And their leadership is in a whole different league, if you ask me. But my personal take on Nabiullina is, you know what, I was critical of her before special military operation, right? Before collective West provoked this proxy war against Russia. I was a bit skeptical of her, but you know, last 3 years to me personally was eye-opening in many ways, on not just on Nabiullina, but on the economical bloc of the Russian government in general. Because look, by the way, I mean, 30,000+ sanctions on Russia, and the economy is withstanding, right? Economy is withstanding is. I mean, do you know any other country that managed to withstand this tremendous pressure from the collective West as well as it did Russia? So who should we thank for this capability of Russian economy to withstand this pressure. It's Nabiullina, right? It's economical bloc in general, right? It's Russian government, political and economical leadership of Russia, right? From ministers and head of central bank to president. It's their policies that was implemented for, during the many years, by the way, right? That give Russia strength to withstand this enormous pressure, by the way. I mean, 30,000+ sanctions. It's not a joke, right? So therefore, today, my opinion about Nabiullina is that she is most definitely one of the best, if not the best, head of central banks in the world. I mean, she is just good, but too good. She is just too good, man, right? Now, expectations are, by the way, here in Russia that because inflation is slowing down, the last year, and even in the beginning of this year, by the way, central bank and economical bloc had a task to cool down economy, right? Because of this overheating that our economy was experiencing in 2024, for example. And the economical bloc succeed with that, and central bank too, with different means, including with a high interest rate, right? That was at 21%, by the way, at one point. Now it's 20%, right? So economy is cooling down, by the way. Inflation is kept in check. And even on annual terms, by the way, inflation is below double digits, right? Which is a good result. And now expectation is that probably towards the end of this month, during the next meeting, central bank will decrease interest rate for 2 points, right? Up to 18. And then next several months, this process will continue. And towards the end of the year, we might have an interest rate from 12 to 15, which is still high, by the way, but definitely not as high as current 20, right? And I think that's exactly what is going to happen. We will see drop in the interest rates, which will then play positive role to accelerate processes in the economy again, right? Because we no longer facing overheating and all the other issues that are related with overheating economy. So Nabiullina is reacting on economical situation rapidly, very fast, right? She is a conservative, as far as I can tell, by the way. She's a conservative, which is good, by the way, which is good. Because her conservatism gives Russian economy additional security cushion, right? And so yes, this is my take. I think she's doing a great job, man. She's definitely one of the greatest financial experts in the world, and definitely probably best head of central bank in the world. 3-4 years ago, I was critical for reasons, by the way, and I could explain my reasons, right? But now I think she's definitely on top of the game. And the entire economical bloc, by the way. I think Russian Prime Minister Mishustin is tremendously successful as a prime minister, because after all, he is a prime minister, right? And he is overseeing all the decision-making processes of government, including economical bloc. So this is my personal take. Yet again, I'm not financial expert, isn't it? And economical expert, but that's my personal take as one citizen journalist here. Thank you for your question. Oh, this is interesting, isn't it? Nidish Kumar is asking, Levan, how do you view political shift in South Korea? Will Japan follow suit? And I was thinking about it, Nidish. I was thinking about it. I noticed certain changes in South Korean policies, right? Certain, signaling from South Korea that they don't want to be in hostile relationships with the global South. and they would love, they would love to improve relationships, let's say. And I think, yes, Japan will follow. I think Japan will follow. We should keep in mind that Japan is under much more control of US than South Korea. Although, by the way, both countries are occupied countries, right, by US. Both countries are under tremendous pressure and influence from US, from the collective West. But nevertheless, shift is clearly visible, isn't it? You also notice it and discussing this topic. So shift is visible, and I think Japan will follow. Japan will follow South Korea, and in 3 to 5 years' time, probably we will see significant improvement of the relationships between Tokyo, Seoul, and BRICS capitals, if US will not go ahead with the crackdown on these alternative thinkers in South Korea and Japan, which might happen, by the way. They might go ahead and organize some massive crackdown on independent thinkers, yet, let's say, or the people in the political class that won't go out of the way of US and no longer and people that don't want South Korea and Japan to be a military bridgehead of NATO or the US, right, in the region. So yes, I think there is a realistic chances. By the way, about 2 months ago, wife of former Japanese prime minister was visiting Russia. By the way, she had a meeting with the Russian president, and it was not. She is not official representative of Japan, but one may argue that certain groups in Japan, in Japanese elites, maybe are testing the ground for possible improvement, because yet again, if you are Japanese, why would you want your country to be a bridgehead for the US, which will endanger entire your population, right? Same goes for South Korea. So yes, there is a potential for that, but on the other hand, we should keep in mind that US has most likely quite a lot of assets in both countries, and they will try to silence and suppress people that are opposing US hegemony, let's say, over these countries. It's a good, interesting stuff, isn't it? Interesting stuff is happening there. Jean HFX is commenting, how is your daughter doing in her journalism studies? Oh, she's doing good. Thank you for asking. She's doing good. She's working on certain projects. I have seen few, by the way, and I was very much impressed. Very busy, and therefore we only managed to make a couple of programs on Patreon and Boosty, but whenever she has time, she's helping me, right? So yes, she's doing good. By the way, I am happy that she's a successful student. By the way, I'm telling you, I was quite impressed with her number of her works, because she just began study this year, right? It's the first year in universities. Several more years to study, to learn more, and well, me as a parent, I'm happy that she's interested, she's paying attention, she's working, and with certain success. I don't want to be too all the parents are exaggerating, isn't it? But I want to be objective, and yeah, she's doing good. Couple of her works, by the way. I mean, she can write. That's why she's end up on journalism. By the way, she is writing better than I ever did, in my personal opinion. She has potential to become a writer, right? And I spend in journalism more than 3 decades now, isn't it? When I see potential, I can recognize it. When I see some article, language that this article is written with tells me straight away, is there a potential or not? And she definitely can become a great journalist and a great writer. She has that style of writing, right? And also technical stuff, by the way. Also technical stuff. University gives you tools, technical knowledge that is absolutely necessary in the modern era to be successful in journalism, media field, in the media field. Что? Levan, can Russia track Chechens who are involved in Syria? Probably yes. Probably Russian intelligence services have ability to track movement of elements that are in different terrorist organizations in Syria, not just from Russia, but from other former Soviet republics. Probably there is some tracking of their actions, movements, but I'm sure there is such a elements in place, and that's all I can say really, because it's a specific stuff that you're not gonna read in open sources, right? So I'm quite sure Russian intelligence services are paying attention to this, to whatever risks can be generated against Russia by such elements. And dear friends, let's end this live stream on that. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention. Bob, thank you very much for your super chat. Many thanks to everybody who supported and continues to support. Have a wonderful weekend, dear friends, and take care. See you soon.